So good afternoon. We have with us Steve Zeltzer, who is a labor organizer, right? Uh, and today it was a special day because he organized a French event in front of the French consulate, correct? And this event, can you tell us what this event is about?
Well, the event is about solidarity between American working people
Yeah.
with the French Yellow Jackets, the workers who are in the streets of Paris and throughout the country, to show that we have solidarity with them in San Francisco, and also to show that their issues that they're raising in France are the same issues that we face here.
Really? Okay, but we don't have people wearing yellow jackets.
Well, there are no mass protests in the United States. There should be
Oh, okay.
over our conditions.
Yeah, so
But,
they came up with the idea in France.
Well, that's because these yellow jackets are required in your automobile
Ah,
if you have an accident. And
okay.
so they were very angry about their tax increases and their
The
austerity.
price of gasoline.
And austerity. They can't survive. Workers can't survive in France.
Yeah,
So
the,
and the
the
Macron
gas price is taxed too much.
and Macron is giving the wealthy billionaires tax deductions while
So
he's
they can stay in the country.
while he's cutting subsidies for education and things like that.
Well, you heard that people, when they tax too much, they leave France. So that's probably why he did that in the effort to
Well,
keep them in France.
I don't. I'm not for keeping the billionaires. I'm for taking over their property.
Oh,
Yeah, for public control of the billionaires. I mean, I don't believe in making capitalism better. I don't believe that the capitalists should be running the world like they're
Okay.
running France.
but they escaped France. They escaped
Well,
France.
they can leave, but not without their property.
Oh, that's true. That's true. They cannot take the house on their back. They can sell it, but you're right. You're right. There's only so much you can put in a liquid form, right?
That's right.
So you want, there was many topics spoken about in your demonstration today. It was about like you said, the education, the capitalism, the billionaires. There were, and then also some country like Chile, where the teachers are living in poverty because they've been laid off.
Privatized their Social Security in Chile.
Yeah,
Pensions are being attacked all over the world, including in California.
yeah,
Governor Brown, the Democrat supported by the labor, has been attacking public worker pensions.
yeah. Like you
California.
mentioned, they mentioned Blum, who is taking
Richard
over.
Blum, who's Dianne Feinstein's husband, has been taking part of the pension money of the University of California employees and putting it in his own business.
Oh, okay.
He should be prosecuted criminally for that. Financial conflict of interest.
Oh, he's an investment banker, so he take the money he invested.
Yeah,
for
in his business.
retirement.
Yeah.
Get at least some interest on that money.
Well, they get some interest, but it's a financial conflict of interest if he's a trustee or regent
Yeah.
of the University of California and is funneling money from the pension money of the UC workers into his personal business.
Okay.
That's illegal and financial conflict of interest. And Xavier Becerra, who's the Attorney General, should investigate and prosecute Richard Blum for doing that. They shouldn't be having financial investments from the workers at UC. They're trying to privatize the pensions at UC.
Right.
And they want to get
Right.
rid of their defined benefit pensions and put them in 401ks.
Yeah, but if they get more interest, isn't that better?
Well, first of all, a lot of people lost 401k money.
Yeah.
Remember what happened in the last collapse? People lost everything in the
Oh,
401k.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, so they lost everything for retirement.
Okay.
It's not a defined pension benefit.
So there were some presidents, like you said, who were for putting money in private funds and investing it.
Well, the capitalist class want to steal the pensions, the public pensions of workers,
So they can invest it.
so they can use it for their own purposes.
Oh, okay.
Fidelity, these companies want to take that money, the pension money, and basically rip it off.
Yeah, especially Fidelity. Not to go after a specific fund.
Why
but
not?
They
They're
do,
the
but they
ones that
do-
are running
But they
things.
do invest, in war activities. and
Business. They don't. It's just business wherever they can make most money. And right now, the United States is spending $750 billion a year, supported by Trump and the Democrats for war. So there's a lot of money in war investments.
stuff. Yeah.
War is a
because-
profitable business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is true. So,
In France as well. France is an imperialist government. In fact, I heard today that Macron is saying that he's going to stay in Syria.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
he's
do you
not
know
leaving
why?
Syria.
Do you know why?
They want to control the country. They have investments. France has got deep hands in Africa. There's a long history of colonialism of Africa. Algeria, many countries of Africa have been Chad have been colonized by France. They've been French colonies. In fact, the French colonies, even though they have
They left.
nominally independence, they still
Yeah.
are paying money to France. France controls their wealth.
Now?
Yes,
Oh, I didn't know that. I know that they sent teachers there.
they control their wealth.
Okay. So now France is, like you said, still in Syria for maybe the oil. Well, who knows? But,
Yeah.
whatever their motivation is, each country has some strategic places they want to be present in,
Hmm.
so that they can sell them arms, that they can sell them
Mhm.
whatever. But the topic of the yellow is mostly labor. It's
Well,
not,
no, actually the unions in France, CGT and other unions, did not support initially this movement.
Oh.
This was a kind of an occupied movement. It was a populist movement.
Yeah.
The workers who were there were teachers, mechanics, professors, doctors, retirees. Many people were involved. I was there on November the 25th.
Oh, yeah.
And
That's
I-
why I
I
invited
interviewed
you.
them,
What did
yeah.
you see? Tell me.
People going out in the street from all
Really?
over. Yeah.
Was it safe for you?
Yes.
You went on the streets
Yeah.
during the protest.
Yeah. Well, 9 people have been killed.
Yeah, so that
by
means it was
the
not
police.
safe.
Well, there are a lot of protests, a lot of demonstrations, and some people. I saw one woman that was collapsed because of the tear gas.
Oh,
They're doing a lot of tear gassing of
did
people.
you wear a mask?
No,
You were okay though.
I got gassed.
Oh, you did?
I got gassed by Macron.
Oh my God.
He gassed me.
You mean you actually were there when he was doing it?
Yes,
Oh my God.
I got gassed by your president.
Oh my God. So they do use
a lot
weapons.
of gas
They do
and
use.
rubber bullets. I mean,
I heard like how many gallons of gas they use?
a lot of gas, a lot
I
of tremendous
heard,
amount.
I mean, it wasn't.
They must have used thousands of canisters of gas
Yeah.
all over the country. They're gassing people, and these people were peaceful, but they wanted to blockade them and prevent them from surrounding the palace.
Oh.
So they're in the center of Paris, and of course, what happened is, as a result of all this gas, people could not go and shop. The people who live there, very wealthy
It stops
people,
the
well, not only
business.
they stopped all the business, and
It stopped
the
the
economic
economy.
minister said it was catastrophe
Oh my God.
during Christmas time to have
my
these mass
God.
protests.
Especially today, they're out in the street.
That's
today.
right. Yeah, they're out in the street today.
So
So,
all
but
the merchants are not happy about that, even if they're
well, they
mom
got
and pop
they got to
shops.
get rid of Macron.
Oh, they want to get rid of him.
Yeah.
He went on TV and apologized, but that's not enough.
Obviously,
Yeah. So what the French people want is
They want him
lower
out.
gas price.
well,
more
they
wages, better
they
working.
want more and more an end to capitalism
Oh,
because it's a system problem. Like in this country, getting rid of Trump doesn't change the system.
yeah.
You have the same structure. You look in San Francisco, and this is what we talked about at the rally. You have people dying in the street, people homeless. There are 30,000 people living in tents
Yeah.
in the Bay Area. We have so much wealth. There are many billionaires in Northern California, yet people can't pay their rent.
Yeah.
People are being evicted.
They get rid
People
of the
can't get
tents.
health care.
They get rid of
No,
the
there's still a
tents
lot of tents around in
There are?
other places.
because
Yeah,
they made them illegal.
I saw them. I saw some tents today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there are tents here.
But they passed an ordinance saying
Yeah.
that.
Well,
it's
just because you
illegal.
make it illegal doesn't mean you get rid of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's still people there.
Yeah,
tents.
I've saw people in tents.
Oh my God. Okay, so what do you suggest can be? I know you know the ins and outs of the labor.
Well, the issues that the French working people are protesting, attack on their pensions, attack on privatization of education,
Yeah.
austerity policies. They want to deregulate labor so they can have temporary part-time workers easily,
Yeah.
like they do here in this country. Everybody, or more and more people, are temporary part-time.
So
The
they
gig
don't pay
economy,
health
so they don't
insurance.
pay health insurance and retirement.
Like Target.
So basically, they're marginalizing the working class. So people have less and less
Yeah,
to
yeah.
to live on and survive. And it's not a politician, one politician. It's a system.
Yeah. I spoke to someone at Target. They say they won't let us work more than 30 hours because then they have to give
Yeah,
us
yeah.
insurance.
Well, these companies, actually, Walmart and these other companies, were telling people to go to public hospitals to get their health care done.
Oh my God.
So here they're ripping off the public. They should be in jail. I mean, they're actually telling workers to go to a public hospital so they don't have to pay the cost of health care.
Mm-hmm.
Cost shifting. You know, the capitalists want to make as much profit as they can by cost shifting their costs
Mm-hmm.
to somebody else. So who are they cost shifting it to? To you and I, the taxpayer, the public. That's what they do.
I want to see it from the perspective of an employer. Are employers feeling safe to go to work in France now that all these workers are mad at them, or do they stay home?
Well, I mean, the capitalists are still in charge in France.
They're in charge, but do
There's
they
no-
actually face the people?
Well, I would say that they're not worried yet. In 1968, in 1848, in 1871, when there was a Paris Commune, the capitalists were worried. Right now, they're concerned, and they're worried that Macron is not going to be able to stay in power, which is
Yeah.
a possibility. Because if he goes, then it opens things up politically. He was elected in part because he was running against Le Pen, because a left candidate was knocked out. So it was him against Le Pen. People didn't even know who he was, a lot of people. He's a banker. He was involved in selling off Alicon, the French energy maker, to General Electric. So now France is dependent on General Electric for their turbines,
Oh, yeah, that's bad for the French people.
obviously. But these capitalists really are just more interested in profit. They don't care about, it's like in this country, in the United States, capitalists here outsource their production, their industrial base, to first down south and to Mexico and then to China, because they can make more profit. They don't care about the workers in the industrial center of the United States. So I mean, and then they blame the Chinese and they blame other people, but it's a system. It's capitalism.
Okay, somebody told me that all jobs are created by a capitalist because he puts in the capital to hire the workers.
No. The Russian Revolution showed that you don't need capitalists.
You don't need capital to hire workers?
No, you can. The workers produce the wealth. Workers produce the wealth.
But the
You don't need the
capitalists
capital. No, it's the workers who
provide
create.
the money.
The workers create the wealth.
The workers create the wealth.
Yeah.
But
You have
gotta-
cooperatives where workers run their cooperatives.
Yeah. But
So
you gotta
they're
pay
creating
those
their wealth.
workers, right, with money.
Well, they have co-ops, cooperative run, factories. I mean, so they're creating their own wealth and they're dividing it among each other.
Okay.
So you don't have to have a capitalist system.
To create jobs.
Yeah, to create jobs and to have a better society. In fact, capitalism now is destroying the world, the climate. Like PG&E, what they did in refusing to spend money to properly maintain the equipment led to mass fires, led to deaths, murders of people. PG&E is a criminal syndicate because they were given money to take care of these things, but they put the money in their profits rather than taking care of their consumers, their customers.
Do you work for a capitalist company?
No,
You don't.
no.
Oh, okay. Because that would be against your views,
No,
right?
but workers who are working for capitalist companies are having to fight the capitalists
Okay.
to keep their wages. Look at the General Motors workers. They're having to fight General Motors because General Motors wants to shut down their plants. You have the mental health workers at Kaiser who are fighting for more staff so that people don't commit suicide. Kaiser is actually killing people. They're murdering people. Kaiser, bosses.
Really?
Yeah, because they don't have enough staff. Somebody needs an appointment for mental health illness,
they wait
and they
and
wait
wait.
and wait, and people commit suicide. I'd say that they should be charged criminally.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's terrible. And when NUHW had their rallies, their families of people who committed suicide testified about what happened.
Oh.
Their daughters were trying
Waited and
to
waited.
waited, and they committed suicide because they weren't getting proper treatment.
So they got some out of court
Well, they're so, but
settlement?
they don't. Even if they get a settlement, it doesn't bring back their family members.
Oh, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. Yeah. So those are issues that you tackle every day.
They're
Like-
all the issues working people face.
So you're self-employed, right? Because for this organization, you have to come up with the issues, expose the
Well,
issues.
there are many issues. I mean, all kinds of issues: transportation, housing, healthcare, environment, what's happening with our environment.
Yeah, but
many
you've been
issues.
doing this for 30 years, so you know all the issues in and out.
I know many of the issues. Yeah,
Yeah.
And I also do a radio show on KPFA called Work Week Radio
Really?
every Tuesday from 3:30 to 4.
So, do you offer suggestion to the leaders since you know everything?
Well, I discuss with the leaders and rank and file. For example, right now the Oakland teachers may be going on strike.
Yeah.
The LA teachers, LAUSD, may be going on strike.
So you
The
tell
the
them-
UC workers are without a contract, AFSCME workers and UPT workers, CWA. And what I've talked with some of them about is that they need to go out together. Many workers are facing a contract struggle, but they're not united. And workers need to unite to be successful.
Okay, so is that what you go see the
Well, I
boss?
interview them, but I mean, the problem is that the capitalists are very united,
Yeah.
although they're having a difference with Trump now.
Okay.
There's an
but you
internal
avoid
division.
the-
But so you have to have a unification of the working class. And what we need general strikes in the United States. We need,
big ones.
yeah, like in San
Like in-
Francisco in 1934, there was a general strike. In Oakland, there was a general strike in 1946. And people are being told, wait for the Congress, wait for the judges to take care of Trump. That's what they're being told. Wait for somebody else. We, the working people in this country, should take care of Trump by having a general strike.
Oh.
That would
Yeah,
that
yeah.
would that would force him out. That wouldn't change the system necessarily to force Trump out, but that would get rid of him.
We do have the Women March and all those.
But those aren't. I'm talking about a general strike. Those are protests.
Oh, protest is different.
Protest is different from a general strike. A general strike, everything shuts down, and then the capitalists don't make any money. The airports close down,
They're
and everything
forced
shuts down.
to settle.
They would get Trump out. If there was a general strike, if there was a yellow, jacket movement here, they could force Trump out.
Yeah, I mean, when Trump said that it's not the Democrat or the Republican that are responsible for shutdown of the government, it's the president. And this year, he shut down the government, and so he's pointing the finger at himself.
Yes.
You agree with that?
Well, Trump is he lies about things. He makes things up. He says
Yeah.
one thing one day and another thing another day. So
Whatever
I mean, that's
fits
but he's a flim-flam man.
Yeah.
Flim-flam man, and that's his history. And as a developer in New York, he lied to people. He bullied people. He paid off politicians like Hillary Clinton.
Oh.
He attacked her and said, I paid you off. I know how you operate. These politicians like London Breed in San Francisco, she is paid off by the corporations. I mean, right now in San Francisco, there's a scandal about Amy Brownell,
Yeah.
who is a environmental engineer working for the Department of Public Health. She's actually paid for by Lennar, the developer.
Oh.
And that hasn't been reported in the Chronicle. The developer pays her as a result of an agreement made with Willie Brown, who wanted to develop Lennar and Treasure Island for $1 million condos. That was
So
what they
pay
wanted to
her
do.
off?
Well, they pay her, and then she tells people everything's fine.
Oh, okay.
But one of the interesting things about the Chronicle is that they never talked to Pelosi, Feinstein. Kamala Harris was district attorney in San Francisco
Yeah.
when whistleblowers were being fired. She knows what was going on. Gavin Newsom was mayor of San Francisco when this scandal was going on,
Oh.
when workers were blowing the whistle and saying people were being contaminated. Gavin Newsom knows about it personally. He's personally aware of it, and he covered it up.
And he's now the governor.
Well, yeah, he's the governor, and he's in charge of the State Department of Health, Public Health. He supports this development. Gavin Newsom supports building condos, $1 million condos, on a radioactive nuclear dump site for profit. That's what runs things in capitalism.
Oh, yeah. But I don't know. Last week I read that in the paper that they found out that everything was fine. Is that true?
No one's fine.
That's not true?
No, they're lying.
They lie?
Yeah, they
It
lie.
was in the newspaper.
They lie. Well, look, even the EPA said that they had falsified tests. There are two executives of Tetra Tech who are in federal prison for lying, for falsifying tests. 6 workers were fired for reporting falsification tests who worked for Tetra Tech.
Falsification of
Yeah,
tests.
falsification tests. There was
And
one
they
worker's
still
Michael
report it in
Mandry.
the Chronicle?
They reported it. I mean,
Yeah.
these workers, Michael Mandry, who worked for Test America, which did testing on asbestos
Yeah.
at Hunters Point and Treasure Island, he presented that information that the tests had been falsified. That was ignored. In fact, he sent the report to Nancy Pelosi, and she knows about the falsification. Personally, she knows about it.
And she said,
Dianne Feinstein knows about it personally. So the Chronicle isn't talking to these people about what they know and when did they find
they tried
out.
to calm down the public.
Because they have a financial interest in this.
Okay.
Nancy Pelosi's cousin, Lawrence Pelosi, worked for Lennar as an executive for property to develop. Dianne Feinstein's husband, Dick Blum, is a developer. He owned Perini. He's for developing and building condos on Treasure Island and Hunters Point. And Willie Brown has got interests in this. Willie Brown had a deal with Nancy Pelosi to encourage Chinese investors to invest in Hunters Point, and then they would get green cards. They would get visas. And he raised $300 million from investors in China.
Wow.
So this is a criminal financial syndicate that's operating here.
Yeah. No wonder why they get so rich, right?
Well, that's
Just
what it
as
is,
soon as they get
ripping people off. And now that the people who have bought homes in Hunters Point are afraid to have their children go out, they're afraid they're going to be contaminated.
Oh. So
And they were lied to by Amy
even though
Brownlow.
They publicized that everything is fine. The kids are getting.
It's not fine. Look, the reality is Hunters Point Shipyard and Treasure Island can never be decontaminated because they've already spent $1 billion of our tax dollars trying to decontaminate it.
Okay.
And the tests were falsified.
Oh.
So we're going to spend another $1 billion? I would say, why not take that money, build housing for working people in San Francisco?
Okay.
Nancy Pelosi got another $42 million in the last budget conciliation. And she's going to spend another $42 million for testing. I think they have to close it up and build working class housing for the people who need it in San Francisco.
Okay. Well, since I listened to all the speeches today, if you had to write a recommendation, video, or letter to President Macron, what would you recommend? Even though you think he's not going to pay attention to you, what would you recommend to the government?
Well, I'm not for reforming the Macron government.
Okay.
In other words, the people I met do not want to make Macron better. Okay. They don't believe that Macron is going to be better. They believe that he represents the billionaires, the wealthy of France.
But he said he's listening.
Well, people say all kinds of things. Trump promised people he was going to put people to work. Real wages have not gone up that much in the United States since Trump was elected. And the reason is, at the same time he says he's going to put people to work, people are working for money that they can't afford to live on. I mean, he's
like the hotel strikers?
That's right. They can't afford to live. I mean, they have to work 2 or 3 jobs to survive. I mean, that's what Trump said because he opposes unionization. He's against strong unions. He supports the owners, Walmart and the billionaires, the Walton family, the billionaires in San Francisco who don't want unionization. They fight unionization.
Do you know how that strike was settled?
Well, they got the Marriott Hotel got some settlements. They got wage increases, and they got their medical benefits covered.
Okay.
So it was a victory, and one of the reasons was that the workers went out for over a month, and also they did it nationally. It wasn't just in San Francisco.
All the hotels.
Many Marriott, not all, but many Marriott hotels were struck. So it was very hard for Marriott to fight them if all the hotels are going out.
You remember 3 years ago it was the janitors, your union as if local 82 or something.
87.
87, yeah. And they did double their pay to $21.
Yeah, you can win. Workers have the power because the capitalists need workers to make profits.
Yeah.
And if you have the power, you can win your struggle.
So it pays off in the end.
Yes.
For
without a union, you would have wage cuts.
Mm-hmm.
They want slave labor.
So when you walk out and
well, you have to organize yourself, and you need a democratic labor movement in the unions so that the unions start to represent the rank and file. All unions need to work together for solidarity. It's not just about the janitors. It's not just about the UC workers. It's not just about the teachers. It's everyone.
Do you sit at the table of the unions and advise them?
I don't advise. I'm not a union advisor. I do interviews and radio programs.
Oh, you're a reporter.
I'm a reporter, but I discuss with them. And the rally
do you
today.
give your opinion or no?
Oh, I say what I believe. Yeah. I mean, I don't.
Or do you give recommendations?
I talk to them and make suggestions. I mean, one of the problems is what you have in this country is called business unionism.
Yeah.
There was a witch hunt in the 1950s in the United States, and communists, militant socialists were kicked out of unions.
Oh.
They purge the unions, and what they have is corporate unionism. The AFL-CIO and the unions support capitalism.
Really?
Oh, yes. They want to make capitalism better. Even Bernie Sanders supports capitalism. Bernie Sanders, he says he wants to make capitalism better. He wants to reform it.
I mean, so that it's in favor of the worker.
Well, I don't believe in making capitalism better. It's like I'm not going to solve, or we're not going to solve the problem of the banks by making them smaller, which is Sanders' proposal.
He's a socialist.
Well, he's a social democrat. There's a difference between socialist, well, there are different kinds of socialists, but he's a social democrat. They want their ideas that let's make capitalism better.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He doesn't come across that way.
Well,
he is universal health care, free education.
But he also supports the military budget. He supports drones.
Yeah?
Yeah. He supports imperialism. You can't call yourself a socialist and support U.S. imperialism.
Okay.
I mean, U.S. imperialism is contrary to the...
He voted against Syria.
I don't know if he's supporting the withdrawal from Syria.
No, he did. He didn't want us to go in Syria.
But is he supporting the withdrawal from Syria? I haven't heard. But in any event, the United States has 800 bases all over the world. Mm-hmm. We spend $750 billion on the military. The Democrats are supporting this military budget, Pelosi and the Democrats, along with the Republicans. And that is the money that's spent on the military in the United States, $750 billion, is not going into health care. It's not going into education. It's not going into housing. It's not going into social services, which we need.
Oh, we better put jobs there.
Of course. The wealth of this country should go to the people, not for imperialist adventures.
I agree. I definitely agree. Why would someone like Pelosi don't think
because
that
she supports imperialism.
She's supposed to be more to the left. Right?
Well, according to the Republicans, she is. Yeah. I mean, the Republicans and the right wing were calling Obama a communist. Was he a communist? No.
No.
He got in and he appointed bankers, Geithner, to be the head of the Treasury Department. So the right wing attack on people like Obama and Pelosi as communists and socialists is basically fraudulent. They have nothing to do with socialism.
Well, as long as the country is not a socialist country.
Well, they're worried about socialism now because a lot of young people don't see a future in capitalism and believe that socialism is a solution for them. That's why the DSA, which is now the largest socialist country organization in the United States, has 50,000 members.
Was it
so? What DSA, Democratic Socialists for America? A lot of young people owe money from graduating from school. They can't go to school. They don't feel they have a future. They're part-time work. They're in the gig economy. They're very unhappy and frustrated about their future.
Okay.
And a lot of them, millions, are becoming socialist.
Yeah. So you think that's the direction the country should take?
I think that we can't solve our problems in capitalism. Capitalism is not going to solve our problems. This system is not going to solve our problems. I mean, you look in San Francisco, one of the wealthiest cities in the world. It's the wealthiest state in the world, and you have deprivation here, poverty. You have they're trying to sell off City College. The Board of Trustees and Rocha, the chancellor there, want to sell off the reservoir there at Balboa Reservoir, turn it into condos for Avalon. So in other words, our community college, they want to sell it off. The Gough Street campus was sold off. These capitalists are ripping off the public. They're privatizing public resources.
Wow. When you went to France in November, did you feel that the unions there who asked people to walk out function the same way as Americans?
The unions in France are more political. First of all, the union system is different. In France, you can be in any union you want to.
Yeah.
And so the workers, even though they have different unions, they have more collective power. There's more democracy in the labor movement in France than there is here.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the unions are not as top-down as they are here. So but the union leadership in France, of most of the unions, do not want to overthrow the Macron government. Otherwise, they would have joined the Yellow Jackets.
France?
No, they don't want Macron out.
And for what reason?
Because they don't want a general strike. They don't want a mass movement. That's a threat to their control.
Okay. So if there's a general strike, which is almost happening now, what would happen?
It's not a general strike now. What is happening now is protests. There are some strikes. CGT went on strike on December the 14th. for 2 hours or something like that.
Oh,
So
you
there
mean
are
the
some strikes.
transportation.
There's some limited strikes, but there is no general strike. In 1968,
Yeah.
there was a general strike movement.
Oh, people walked out of their job.
People occupied their factories. Peugeot was occupied. And there's a video called Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win by Jean-Pierre Thorne.
Yeah.
You can see it on laborvideo.org. And that he was a young student at that time, a film student, and he went to a factory, Peugeot factory in Paris, and interviewed what happened with the workers. That was a general strike. They occupied the factory. They took over. And then the police attacked them and tried to get them out of the factory.
Oh.
That was happening in 1968.
So if it happens nowadays, Macron has no chance.
No, if there was a general strike, he'd be out.
He'll be out. So that's why he's trying to calm down the...
He's trying to make concessions, yeah.
Oh, because he wants to stay in power.
He wants to stay in power, yeah.
Yeah, so that's all about. But does French has enough budget in their coffers to solve some of those problems?
If they go after the billionaires, they have a lot of money. This country has a lot of money. It's like in Austria, in Vienna, Austria, they had a big housing problem in 1919.
Okay.
And the socialist communists had a united front. They took over election. And they made the wealthy pay for housing units. They built 200,000 housing units in Vienna.
They should do that in San Francisco.
Of course. Working people can't afford to live here. Small businesses can't afford to live here. There's no rent control. They're being kicked out. So you have empty stalls around San Francisco. None of the capitalist politicians in San Francisco are talking about rent control. Not one. I mean, shouldn't there be rent control for small business people?
Yeah, they can't pay the rent for their business.
That's what's happening. So they're being driven out. But not one capitalist politician in San Francisco, Democrat, and they can run San Francisco.
Say let's lower the rents?
No, are saying we should have to rent control. You can't evict people like you're evicting people. All kinds of people are being evicted.
I know, they lose their business.
That's right. So what are the capitalists doing about it? What are the capitalist politicians in San Francisco
They
doing
say
about
go.
it? They're not going to fight the landowners.
Oh.
That's who you have to fight, the developers and the banks. You say, no, you're not going to kick them out.
And they rather stay with empty storefronts?
That's what's happening.
And so they get zero rent.
Exactly.
They rather get zero
Well, they have
rent.
an occupy, a tax in Vancouver
Yeah,
if you don't rent your space.
yeah.
So there's that thing. But my view is there needs to be rent control, and these capitalist developers and the owners have to say you're not going to be able to evict any small business people.
Yeah, it's enough, yeah.
It is, but they do what they can, and they'll keep them empty even if people need to have businesses.
What are they hoping for? That some rich business owner will walk in and say, "Yeah, I'll pay the price."
They'll get more money.
For whoever walks in.
Yeah, and there are a lot of businesses in San Francisco that start, and because of the high rent, they can't survive. So you're paying, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month for a little store.
A little store. It's
Yeah,
too
you can't
much.
make it. So they're destroying San Francisco. These capitalists are destroying San Francisco like they're destroying Paris. Airbnb is destroyed North Beach. I mean, turned it into a hotel district. They incentivize owners to get rid of regular tenants and just make them hotels. That should be illegal.
And people are
All you get is tourists, and what's happening in Paris and other major cities like that is if all you have is tourists, you're not going to have people who go to a vegetable shop, go to a butcher shop because they don't live there. They're tourists. So it hurts the local people, the local shops. And that's what's happening.
Yeah, if people don't live there anymore, then they have
Exactly.
less shoppers.
Exactly.
So the Minister of Economy has to intervene.
The Minister of Economy is controlled by the billionaires, by the property owners and the banks.
But he advised them. He tells them, "Hey, don't stop cutting."
Well, what are they doing in San Francisco to stop the destruction of small businesses?
Do you know what they're doing? Is the mayor?
I don't think it's an issue for them.
No, London Breed says she's going to try to save.
Well, London Breed has not proposed any solution for small businessmen. London Breed has not proposed any solution for the many homeless. I mean, as far as public housing, Obama and the Democrats have privatized public housing in San Francisco. They're kicking tenants out of their public housing.
Where'd they go?
And end up in the streets, homeless.
That's where that happened.
Yeah, that's what goes. How can a poor person,
Yeah.
low income, afford rent in San Francisco or the Bay Area for that matter?
Oakland.
The rent in Oakland is high. Speculators are there. Have you been to Oakland? There are a large number of tents there of homeless people.
And how about they go further? Like,
Well, I mean,
it's
you
too
know,
much. It's too much.
people are being driven out of the Bay Area. It's a crisis. It's an emergency. This is an emergency.
Yeah, they go what? They go to a state where the
They
rents
end
are
up they
lower?
end up homeless, and they're in bad shape. I mean, there are families that are homeless in San Francisco. It's a crime.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that's too bad. Do you think it's gonna improve or getting worse?
It's going to get worse. And the reason is that this capitalist economy is going to crash.
Well, we just passed Prop C. That's gonna raise.
Well, that will
500
raise
million.
something, but that's 300 million it's going to raise.
Yeah.
That's being challenged. But this economy is on a precipice of a complete collapse. There's a bubble.
Yeah.
And you might have a lot of empty condos in San Francisco when the economy collapses. So you
Yeah,
might be able to house working class people in these condos because a
Yeah.
lot of them are going to go bankrupt.
Well, today Senator Scott Wiener got elected as the leader, and he said we need to build 200,000.
Scott
houses.
Wiener is a shill for the developers.
Yeah,
He
but
wants to
he's-
kick working people out of their homes. He's against rent control, Scott Wiener.
He just announced he wants to build 200,000 units.
At market rate.
Oh, and yeah.
Yeah, market rate. That's Scott Wiener. Scott Wiener's position is let the market determine this.
For real?
Yeah.
He said there's
That's
a
what.
shortage
Yeah,
of
that's.
200,000
Yeah,
units.
his position is let the market. And when he was running against Jane Kim,
Yeah.
they had a protest rally at Jane Kim's rally, and his people were saying, "Let the market rip. Let the market decide." Only rich people. If only rich people can afford to come in San Francisco, that's the way it is. That's him, Scott Wiener. Scott Wiener has allowed the unbridled development of San Francisco, and like Parkmer said, they allowed that to be illegally. The city attorney as well allowed that to be developed, kicking people out. He's a tool and a shill for the developers, Scott Wiener.
But they just voted to pass 3 billion.
Well, he was against that.
He was?
Yeah,
Oh,
Chu and him were against that.
but they passed it.
Yes, there was a split in the capitalist class in San Francisco.
Okay, so now we have all that money, 300
That's
3 billion. That's
no
gonna be
300
for-
million a year, but it's being challenged in the court.
No, but also at the state level, there's 2 or 3 billion
Yeah.
allocated for housing for the state. Some of it will come here.
Well,
Not
I don't know about their housing plan because their housing plan is a capitalist housing plan. It's for the developers.
They're gonna build housing.
Well, it might be for the rich.
Hopefully.
I don't trust them to build housing for working people.
Who's gonna do it then?
A working class party.
They have to raise the money and do it.
Well, the working class party has to be formed and has to have a program for working people. You're not going to get a program for working people when you have capitalist politicians in power because they represent the capitalists.
Interesting. But they call themselves Democrats.
Well, whatever they call themselves, the Democratic Party is a capitalist party. The Republican is a capitalist party. Both of those parties are capitalist parties. They support capitalism and they support imperialism. Has Scott Wiener ever said anything about the money spent for war?
No.
Yeah. Has Nancy Pelosi ever said anything about money spent for war? Has Dianne Feinstein? Well, a lot of our money in this country is going for war.
And they don't protest it.
They support it. They support imperialism. They support U.S. imperialism.
I see. So anyway, the Green Party, we do have a big Green Party in San Francisco.
Yes.
Are they doing anything?
Well, I don't know what the Green Party is doing. It's very difficult for them because you have a monopoly of power in San Francisco with the Democrats in charge. But I think that could be threatened with this corruption scandal because the Democrats run San Francisco, they run the state legislature, they run the governor, and these corruption scandals are going to envelop them because they're involved in corruption. Like with Hunters Point, Bayview, and Treasure Island. They actually at Treasure Island falsified tests to say it's safe to build there. They want to build condos there. This is Willie Brown, Kamala Harris, Dianne Feinstein, Nancy Pelosi. All these people have been involved in a criminal cover-up.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, that's too bad to learn. So we should ignore what they just reported last week in the Chronicle that nothing is wrong.
Yeah, we should ignore that. When Amy Brownell, who is paid for by Lennar, the developer,
Yeah.
says everything's clean, everything's fine,
Yeah.
she's lying and she should be prosecuted criminally.
Oh.
Because she's actually telling people, prospective buyers, that it's safe when it isn't.
Yeah, because I have it in the Chronicle. If you want, I'll send it to you.
Oh, I have it.
Oh, you have it.
I've been writing about it myself.
Okay.
I know about this.
Oh, no, because when I read that, I said, "Oh my God, they've been protesting for something that's safe."
Well, this one of the things about the Chronicle article and the series that they've been doing is this has all been reported in the San Francisco Bayview. Mary Radcliffe in the San Francisco Bayview, Dr. Ahimsa Porter Samshai.
Yeah,
For years they've been reporting this. All of a sudden, the Chronicle is reporting stuff that is already, many of the things have been already reported. In fact, Dr. Ahimsa Porter Samshai actually filed charges against Amy Brownell for her license because she's giving advice improperly. That's not her job. She's acting as a shill for the developer. And London Breed knows that. Gavin Newsom knows that. Kamala Harris knows that. Dianne Feinstein knows that. And Nancy Pelosi knows that. All these people know that. So what does that mean?
They're all in it together.
That's what it means.
Okay, so hopefully not too many victims. And hopefully
There are a lot of victims. I mean, already.
All the kids,
the kids, 50% of the kids have asthma in
that
Hunters
area.
Point, Bayview. There's cancer epidemics.
Yeah.
A large number of people have gotten cancer at Treasure Island and Hunters Point.
Yeah.
The health department is telling them that they're not getting cancer from the poisons and the radioactivity. Amy Brownwell was telling them they were getting cancer from being stressed out.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What kind of stress? The air stress.
Yeah, just the stress. Stressful things. That's what Amy Brownell was saying.
Oh, wow. So
And she's an employee. She presently
Yeah.
is an employee of the city and county of San Francisco. So
Oh.
what does London Breed say about that? In fact, they didn't ask London Breed, why do you have somebody on your payroll who's being paid by Lennar and is telling people everything's safe?
Yeah. She's tried to get along with it.
She's part of the cover-up.
Oh.
In fact, she was appointed by Willie Brown to be in charge of Treasure Island.
Oh. I see. So to go back to the French, the yellow jackets. Also,
Yes.
It looks green on the screen.
Okay,
Maybe because
it is yellow though.
Oh, it is yellow. Yeah, I know it is yellow, but with the lighting, it goes green on the screen. But that yellow movement is going to grow because it's very popular.
It is very popular. 70 to 80% of the people of France support it.
Yeah, yeah.
There is one thing that they have in France that we need here is a collective consciousness.
Yeah.
They actually, not only do they have a collective consciousness, but they act. They're not waiting for somebody else to take care of Macron. They're acting in the streets. We need to have the same approach here in the United States.
So even if the bosses agree with their workers on this issue.
Well, it
right?
depends what bosses. I mean, Nissan is attacking the workers. In fact, one of the workers I interviewed talked about Ghost, the chairman of Nissan Renault, how he was stealing millions and telling them they should live on 15 euros.
Oh, yeah, that's really Nissan here in the United States.
Yeah, well, Nissan here organized to prevent the workers in Mississippi from having a union.
Oh,
They
want to
illegally.
pay them 15 an hour.
Well, they don't want a union. They don't want these workers to have control. There's large numbers of injuries at Nissan.
Oh,
Auto workers it's very dangerous.
they're not protected.
Well, speed. They want to make as many cars as you can. In fact, look at Tesla. It's a hellhole for workers. People get injured. People get scarred.
It's not unionized.
He's fighting the union. He fires people who want a union.
Really?
Yeah.
He's about
Elon Musk. He's a union buster.
Oh my God!
Elon-
We should do something on him because he has a very good image among young people of being a self-starter, but he has also his bad sides, right?
He terrorizes the workers.
Really?
He's a terrorist.
Oh my God!
Yeah, he's a
I
terrorist.
never heard that part of the story.
Okay, yeah. Well, there have been many articles about what he does to workers at Fremont,
Well,
at the Tesla factory.
that's for a new episode.
So many episodes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would never have guessed that from Tesla, who's a progressist company, but apparently.
Well, I'm in favor of environmental safe cars or cars that don't use gas, but I'm not in favor of that on the back of the workers.
Yeah, because
Hmm.
that's your that's kind of what you do. You defend every
The
aspect.
workers are the ones that make the cars.
Yeah. So we should protect them in
We
any.
should.
Okay.
Why should they be mutilated and destroyed for their lives?
It happened.
Yes.
Oh, that's very sad. So anyway,
And
what?
the other sad thing about this is that Governor Brown and OSHA,
Yeah.
Cal OSHA, refused to investigate, to do anything about it.
Oh, really?
They know that workers are being brutalized and fired, and they don't have health and safety protection. And this governor has allowed a corrupt Cal OSHA not to do anything about it.
Oh, that's another sad story. So you, because have done that for so many years, you investigate in depth
Yes,
these people who have such a beautiful reputation.
yes, I investigate. Or I talk to workers, investigate what their conditions
Did
are.
you ever go to Tesla?
I used to work at Tesla, at General Motors,
A gen-
not to Tesla.
so you know what's going on inside out?
Well, I knew what was going on then. I haven't been to Tesla. They don't. It's very difficult to get into the factory
Where
if
are
you're
they?
not a worker.
Where are they?
Fremont.
And not too far. You can go.
But getting in is another thing.
Oh, when they come out of the factory, you
Yeah.
cannot investigate.
Yeah, I've talked to the Tesla workers
Oh, okay.
that were marching in Oakland on May Day. There was a delegation of Tesla workers who were marching in Oakland because of the health and safety conditions.
Oh, so you can talk to them
Yeah,
there.
sure.
Yeah. So what you're doing is very good because at least it brings for today. I'm talking about today. It brings a little bit of the French concerns to America because we see it in the news, but I never saw it actually in San Francisco happening. So you actually brought it here, which is I commend you for that. It's really,
Well,
really,
the issues of the French people are not different from the issues of the American people.
it's the same issues.
Same
Money,
issues, yeah. Same as
gas
Social Security,
price.
education. All the issues that we face in the United States are the same in France.
Yeah, but people here are happy with the gas price, but in France it's double what it's here. Do you know
Well,
why?
people here can't have total gridlock now. You can't even get around in the Bay Area. People are sitting in their cars because of the lack of mass public transportation. I mean, why is it the United States can't build a bullet train between San Francisco and Los Angeles?
They should.
I mean, they're in Korea, they're in Europe, they're in China. China's built 15,000 miles of bullet trains, and we can't build one bullet train? Something's wrong with capitalism in the United States.
Yeah, but you drive, right? Do you think the gas price in America is
Well, if you,
affordable?
it doesn't matter what the gas price is if you can't get around and
Oh,
you're in gridlock.
gridlock, yes.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
today.
one of
Today
the
there
reasons.
was gridlock.
Okay, one of the reasons there's gridlock is you've got thousands of Uber and Lyft drivers on the streets.
Exactly.
And
Today,
where do these workers come from?
yeah,
These drivers who come into San Francisco, thousands and thousands, are workers who
12,000
can't
a day or
are
more.
workers who can't make it where they are.
Yeah.
So they have to come hundreds
To
of
San Francisco
miles
to
to work. I mean, what kind of craziness is that?
I know. Today it took about 15 minutes from Powell to where you are, like Kearney. It was totally standstill. I couldn't believe how gridlocked
It's
it was.
chaotic. It's
It-
chaotic.
It was really, really
And then you have
jammed.
the fires in California, the burning of the forests and PG&E
There's
covering up
another
for that.
scandal.
Yeah, that's another scandal. I mean, we pay them money as a utility. They need to be made a public utility, and the PG&E executives need to go to prison.
Oh yeah, they're being sued, by the way.
Well, there are a lot of lawsuits, but lawsuits aren't going to solve the problem.
Okay. So to go back to my question, why is gas price in France double as
They do
here
have a higher tax in France. In fact, they have a higher tax in Japan. They do have a higher tax in France on gas.
on gasoline?
Yeah, on gas.
So
Yeah.
that's what they
And
protest.
people in rural areas don't have public transportation and are required to use their cars.
Oh,
So they can't get around unless they use their cars in the rural areas of France.
so they want better prices for.
They want lower prices, but if you don't give people a choice
Yeah.
to have public transportation, good public
They,
transportation,
they're
forced to buy the
gasoline.
car, forced to buy the gasoline. That's what was happening.
Oh, so they're protesting that.
That's right.
Oh yeah. So I think they have a right to protest.
They're very angry. I mean, the people of France are very angry because they were sold a bill of goods by Macron that he was going to make things better.
Yeah.
And he has made things better for the billionaires.
Oh.
He gave them a tax cut, like Trump gave the billionaires $1 trillion tax cut here
Yeah.
to make things better.
Here?
Yeah, that's what Trump said. He gave a $1 trillion tax cut to the billionaires, and things are worse off for working people.
Well, that's regrettable. Hopefully, these billionaires are creating jobs, right? Hopefully.
No, actually, automation is eliminating jobs.
Okay.
I mean, in other words, automation technology is being used. They want to get rid of drivers. They're using robot cars. So they want to make more profit by getting rid of workers. And the marginalization of the working class in this country is making things intolerable for people.
Okay. So yeah, so that's regrettable that this is happening. But I'm sure that with the people like you who are getting the word out, I mean, in your own capabilities, like your investment in these, and you get the word out with all the people who are filming today. So it's good. It's going to go on the internet all over the place.
You have to get the word out. You have to break the information blockade.
Yeah, I'm going to get it out. I'm going to put it on social media everywhere.
Okay.
So thank you so much for being part of the French movement. I know there are many other movements in the world. You have been great. I've known you for many years, and I'm so happy that...
I love the French people. They're great people. They have great character. They have a great history. And American people can learn a lot from the French.
I hope so. I don't know. Maybe in the arts, right? Not in
the history, just what they've set up. I mean, France had a great medical system, had a great education system, which is under threat. Healthcare system, a great healthcare system.
They're trying to cut.
They're trying to cut it. So, I mean, they've built a tremendous infrastructure for the people.
Yeah.
And the people expect that as a right, as a human right, of course.
They want it to stay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everybody should have decent. Everybody should have decent health care. Everybody should have decent education for all.
Yeah, they don't want people who regress.
That's right, and that's what this movement is. It's against regression. It's against the destruction of what they have.
Exactly, I know that's what they're protesting. So it was very informative to interview you. I cannot say that of all my guests, but I really, really enjoyed this interview. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.